with more of our evaluations of 2024 Twins heading into 2025. And this time, we're going to get into position players. So let's do it. This is Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello again, and welcome back to Locked On Twins. I'm your host, Brandon Warren. You can unfollow me on the tweets at Brandon_WARNE. And if you're up for it, you can follow me on the Blue Sky at Warren.bluesky. I don't know what else. Just look up my last name. You'll find me, and I would love to hear from you. For some reason or another, not sure why, I've been picking up some steam over there. So greatly appreciate that. He's Mr. Dave Brown on the other side of things here. You can follow him on the tweets at @AnswerDaveBrown, and I understand that he is also on the Sky of Blue. By the way, so everybody uses TweetDeck, and I have that up all the time because I have a lot of different lists. So on the one that I have up right now, I have my home, my notifications, my list, MLB Beat, ML capital B EAT. So it looks like ML Beat. Current and former MLBers, which is way too much Jeff Fry and Zach Kozart, but I'll digress. But now Blue Sky has one. I saw Dan Hayes mention that, and so I'm calling that Sky Deck. And so now that's going to help me get on Blue Sky more often. So again, find Mr. Dave Brown on Blue Sky. Dave, how we doing?
At Answer Dave. No, not Answer Dave Brown.
The OG.
I have my original Twitter handle on the Blue Sky mine. So, and this is my big milk. Look at that. Yay, big milk.
If they were to bring back your original at Answer Dave account, would you jump back on that?
You mean on Twitter?
Yeah.
I don't foresee me doing more with Twitter in the next few years. I was kind of holding out hope that I would be able to outlast certain users and owners of Twitter, but it doesn't look like that is going to come to an end soon. So I don't. I'm fine. Thank you.
Well, we would love to thank everybody for making Locked On Twins their first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, and of course, as part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. As a reminder, too, we love to hear from you in the comments on the YouTube premieres. Like and subscribe over there. 5-star reviews are huge for us. If you give proof of a 5-star review and that you are subscribed to us on YouTube, I will send you a baseball card. Dave, we have already had one person submit an entry and is getting a card. Do you have any idea who that might be?
It's not somebody who used to play for the Twins, is it?
It's somebody who lives in your house.
Oh, Moose the dog?
Strike one.
Is it me?
Strike two.
Is it Remy?
No, it's Claire. Claire sent me proof of subscribing and wanting a card, so I'm going to try find a White Sox card. She says she likes the White Sox, so God bless.
She's not supposed to say that out loud.
No, and to be fair, I'm airing out her words.
Her grievances?
So she didn't say it out loud necessarily, but yes, if you will prove that you have subscribed to our YouTube channel and given us a 5-star review, I will send you a nifty baseball card like the one, if you're watching on YouTube right now, this Byron Buxton. Sweet shades. It's actually kind of a cool card. I've made a box of all my duplicates, and I have some pretty fun duplicates that I'm going to send out. So that could be you. Send it to me in the DMs at Brandon_Warren. A subscribe and a 5-star review, and we will be happy to send a card to you. I was talking to you about cards off the air, Dave, and a fun little bit here as I have rebooted my Twitter account. People maybe have figured out. Just trying to be a little less negative with it, a little more true to form. And so I was kind of messaging some people kind of saying, hey, I'd love to have you on the other side. No pressure, whatever, I understand people may not want to take the ride. But one of the guys who did was former Twin Garrett Jones, who found himself roadblocked by Justin Morneau at pretty much every stop of his career. He came up for the Twins. Justin Morneau was here. Came up with the Pirates. Justin Morneau was there. And almost happened with the Rockies, but I think Jones ended up not signing there and whatever. But anyway, so I had just happened to be sorting through my cards, and I had found a Kent Hrbek, Garrett Jones, where they had both autographed it. And I sent a message to him. I just said, hey, found this the other day. What do you think? And he goes, wow, that's kind of cool. What do you want for it? And I'm like, what? So like, I'm not in the business of selling cards to guys who are on them. To me, it just, I don't know. There's no comps on eBay in the first place because it's like a 1 of 10 card. Mm-hmm. Second of all, I'm not trying to make money off Ken Hrbek or Garrett Jones. So I said, how about this? Do you want to trade anything? He goes, sure. How about I send you an autographed baseball bat? I'm like, yeah, that seems like a good trade for me. And so he's sending me a black autographed baseball bat. He got my address today. It should be coming in the mail here, hopefully in the next week. So I think that was a nice little trade for me, Dave.
That's neat to have an interaction with a Garrett Jones and to have a baseball bat and to give Garrett Jones something that he wants to add to his own collection. It's so this is a card of him and Hrbek.
They both signed it. Yep. It was Jones on one side and Hrbek on the other. And, maybe while we're talking later, I'll find it because I have it digitally saved on my card collection. But, yeah, so anyway, I thought that was
it's not a matter of Hrbek, like, lifting Jones off of something and, like, flipping him over.
You understand that you're on Locked On Twins, right? Like, not Locked On Braves.
I thought people liked that. It's Minnesota. It's the home of Vern Gagne, isn't it? It was the best wrestling move I've ever seen in the World Series.
Ron Gant was clearly out, is our rallying cry.
Well, that's what the umpire said anyway. But
now listen, with the way his arms were placed on Gant, lifting him up like that would not have been easy. Ron Gant should have slid. I think we can all agree on that.
Hrbek's a big, strong man.
True.
So I give him credit for
they called him T-Rex back in those days. He was a big, strong, strapping lad.
I loved his he got into an argument with Hawk Harrelson, 1990 or so. They had like a simmering thing where Hawk did it like a grab some bench. That was one of Hawk's phrases. And maybe Hrbek had watched one go by and struck out and didn't like the call. And Hawk's like, he can grab some bench. And it got back to Hrbek. I don't know if he heard it on the replay or
maybe he got thrown out of the game and was watching in the clubhouse or something.
Something like that. But he found out about it, and Harrelson actually almost got into a fight with Phil Garner once, and in the Brewers and White Sox in a bench clearing brawl. And who was Doug Manzolino was involved, and he's a coach with the White Sox, and so Hawk could irritate. Hawk did a good job of irritating the opponent, and Kent Hrbek was not immune to that.
Yeah, Kent Hrbek was bitter that he didn't make the All-Star team in like 1980 something, and then he vowed from that point on to never play in one, and he stuck to it. Could have been a Gold Glove winner too, but that doggone Don Mattingly. But by the way, I think
one of the most, and I say this in all sincerity, earnestness, one of the most underrated players of his era. Yeah. He's a very good defensive player. Excellent. He's not quite Hall of Fame quality, but and those people are the easiest to underrate. But I think people just thought he hit home runs and he played for the hometown team, and that's also true. But he was a very good player and underrated. And I don't know if he was underappreciated or not, but and of course
not
no, not there.
Nationally, probably, yeah. He had a. So it's funny, actually. We'll get to the gist of the episode here soon.
It's okay.
Something called the couch potato play. Have you ever heard of that?
You might have to refresh my memory.
Part of how when he would fall down and catch a throw, keep his feet on first base, when he would hit the ground, like lay on the ground and extend as far as he could. He called it the couch potato play, and that was just part of the charm of Kent Hrbek.
He was charming. He doesn't really know me. He didn't play when I was a reporter at all. But I say when I was a reporter as if I'm not anymore. I guess I still am technically. I wanted to talk to him about the Ron Gant episode on it would have been, was it 25th anniversary? I don't know. 20th. 25th. He had no interest whatsoever in talking about it. I think he feels vilified by it because
I think he's pretty sensitive about that and the All-Star game thing.
Well, the All-Star game thing, that's not on him. That's some bad decision making. I'm sure he's one of those guys. You could go back, you look at the statistics, and probably find 3 or 4 instances where he was mad about the one All-Star game, but I bet there's 3 or 4 times where he should have gone. First base is a tough position to go, but he, like I said, an overlooked and underrated player in his time.
Some reason I want to think it goes back to because it was the next year manager was from the previous year World Series from that league, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it was Dick Hauser, and that was when Dick Hauser was really sick. And then maybe somebody else got to do it, and then they took their guy over Herbeck. That would be like an 85, 86 range. But I'd have to phone up on if that story lines up. Anyway, lots of Twins chatter, just not what we're here to talk about today. We'll take our first break, but then when we come back, we're going to dive into Louie Varland, Josh Winder, Simeon Woods Richardson, Jair, Camargo, and Ryan Jeffers as our 5 players and what their 2025 outlook appears to be as we head into the offseason. But first, a quick word from a couple sponsors. And the first of those is Ibotta. We love the holidays, but the grocery shop, you got to do a lot of back-end stuff as a parent that's not as fun as opening presents, or for a parent, just even watching your kids open presents and the smiles on their faces. This morning, we had my son's 2nd birthday, and so seeing him see the balloons and the donuts waiting for him, it's actually kind of humorous. He calls donuts no nuts, and so every chance we get, we're like, "Hey, buddy, what do you want for breakfast?" No nuts, and it's we laugh. It's a part of having kids. It's hard to explain to anybody who doesn't have children, but part of holidays is you have to do all the not fun stuff to get ready for the fun stuff. But Ibotta can make that so much easier, whether it's Thanksgiving, whether it's Christmas. You get cash back on everything you need to make the perfect holiday meal, to make the holiday everything you dream it can be. The turkey, the sides, whatever you're picking up, Ibotta has you covered. This month, Ibotta is giving new users 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving feast. Just add the offers in the app to redeem for everything you need to make your feast on Thanksgiving complete. All you have to do is shop at your favorite retailers and upload your receipt. Just upload the receipt. The one time that's difficult, if you go to Walgreens or CVS. So because
1,000 trees died for this receipt.
Exactly. But Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can get everything you need to keep your family and visitors happy on the holidays. Other apps will give you points. They won't give you cash. Those points don't amount to much, and you try to figure out the ratio of Schrute bucks to real bucks. It's impossible to do. Ibotta just cuts out the middleman and gives you cold, hard cash, whether it's to your bank account, gift cards, PayPal, whatever you prefer. And you can also earn cash back on hundreds of online brands and retailers too when you start with Ibotta, like Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy. You're shopping at those places anyway. At the holidays, maybe even more so. So it's all the more reason for you to have the Ibotta app. So download that app and use code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving feast starting November 1st. So we're already in the thick of it. We're a week in. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA. I don't know if I would say that's spelled like it sounds, but pretty close. In the Google Play Google Play or App Store, and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Ibotta. You can save and get money back today. And of course, Dave, we love FanDuel. It's mid-season time in the NFL, and you can get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, if you bet $5 and it wins, you get $150 in bonus bets. Got to win, though, so pick something that you feel pretty dang confident about, like a certain purple team beating the Jaguars this weekend would be on my mind, but you may digress. The FanDuel Sportsbook app, though, gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. And in that place as well, if you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, play-by-play, and so much more on that same app where you place your bets. In other words, it's kind of like a one-stop shop for NFL on your Sundays, your Mondays, your Thursdays, or, any other time you're thinking about football, which, I'm thinking about it pretty much all the time with the waiver wire and all of that for my daily or my weekly stuff. So again, FanDuel, place to be. You get $150 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet hits. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Dave, the first guy we're going to talk about here is Louie Varland. I think the writing is on the wall that Louie Varland is most likely ticketed for the bullpen. And at the same time, too, though, the way the Twins have operated, and maybe it's just something how teams in general operate, I still feel like, and people are going to be like, this is so stupid, they'll probably say, Louie, prepare this spring as though you're going to be a starter. And then when it's not going to work out, we'll bring you along.
When?
I mean, you know what I mean, though? Like, have that relief idea in your back pocket. Come stretched out to throw 50 pitches or, 50, 65, 80, 95, the progression.
Keep going. Yeah.
I can't go higher than that. That's about all the farther I go and can math that out. But, if it was Jack Morris, he'd get up to 150 and say, more. Yeah, I think Louie in the bullpen, we talked about in the last episode, Cole Sands being an after / someone who can get you from the before to the after if you have a late inning or mid inning comeback, your starter gets bounced early. I think he and Louie Varland could be very, very helpful in that kind of Jesse Chavez role, maybe like a Yusmeiro Petit, to bring back a name from a few years ago. Guys who can give you 1 or 2, or if you really need 3 innings, they'd be down for a couple days after that. But guys like that are valuable because if you trust them for close games, you have a chance to come back in more of those games. There's a lot of teams where if you're down 4-2 in the 6th inning, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel with who's going to pitch for you the 6th, 7th, 8th inning to where you're not necessarily punting the game, but you're not giving yourself the best possible chance. When you've got guys like this and an offense that I think can score runs, I don't know. There's ways to win games in the margins, and I think having some pretty good swingmen types like Louie Varland, like Cole Sands, and even to that end, Josh Winder, who's next on our list, there's lots of value in guys like that.
You have to like how Louie finished the season. It was he didn't have a lot of time in the end to transition back to the bullpen role, but they really, he really came through for him in a lot of high leverage, or let's just say generally precarious situations. He wasn't, I'm not saying he was the first or second or third choice, but the Twins played a lot of close games that they mostly lost down the stretch, but it wasn't because of Louie in the end. His stuff obviously plays really well for the bullpen. I think the jury might be back in on, can he be a starter ever in his life? Maybe more research is needed for the ultimate answer on that. But I think he's still in a position where the Twins would be wise to be as vague as possible about what their plans are or what they think Louie can do going forward, at least for this season, because you open yourself up to possible trades. And even if you're not trading Louie, you are, other teams will look at you in terms of leverage and like, well, how much would trading Joan Duran hurt? Or how much would trading Cole Sands hurt? Or, some other player from the Twins' depth. The longer you proceed with the charade, and I mean that not in a negative way, but when you go out and say, yeah, we're still thinking about Louie as a starting pitcher, just that's for the consumption of the trade market out there for one way or another to make it seem like the Twins have some flexibility there. Ultimately, I'd love to see him in the bullpen, at least if we're talking 2025. Cole Sands maybe go into that late role. Maybe Louie does the 2-inning thing. And then you're cooking with a stew, baby, when you've got an effective Louie, you got a Cy Louie, you got Cole Sands, you got Duran, you got Jax at the end of the bullpen. The heck with finding a lefty somewhere. Don't even bother. And if like Brock Stewart or Justin Topa can be added to this mix,
speaking of a Stewie, speaking of a Stew,
you have a Brock Stewie. You have at least that. So I think I'm very encouraged about his prospects long term as a reliever, and I'm not closing the book on him as a starter, but I'm glad he is where he is when he is right now.
So the Twins outrighted Josh Winder here in the last few days, and I think again, I know we're in roster crunch season, but there's been a lot worse pitchers and like utility infielder types that bounce around entire off seasons who I think made sense less than, I guess I don't understand why there's somebody didn't claim Josh Winder as like their 40th guy with the idea that if they don't ever need to take him off the 40, he comes to spring training competing for a job. You know what I mean? And so I thought that he made sense for someone to claim. I'm glad they didn't, because I was impressed with how he looked, even though it was only a 9-inning stint. And I still believe in the stuff. And so we're not even talking about him in the mix for anything guaranteed. But if he fills, he could very easily be the Sands of next year. He could very easily be in that mix. And they have a few other guys. Brent Hedrick, I go back to a lot. They've got guys that can fill that front end. They've got guys that can fill that back end. They don't necessarily need to add to their bullpen without the incumbents in this bullpen can be pretty dang solid. And I think Winder's part of that conversation.
I'm impressed with the Twins scouting and development department, relatively speaking, when it comes to guys like this in the margins. And if the current administration, as far as the Falvey level, not talking about ownership, but that part of the front office is concerned, they're doing a really good job of giving Rocco and Mackey good pieces on the board to use. Not necessarily, you're talking about Winder, or we've moved on to him. Not necessarily guys who are, up for the 162 game season. They're going to be there the whole time, but guys that you can shuffle. And I don't know necessarily that we should take it as a negative on Winder or the potential for players like that they slip through on waivers, because all teams have guys that they like. But I happen to think that the guys, and you worry, well, if I make a change here, does it make any sense? Am I really better off with their Josh Winder when we have Josh Winder at home? Mm-hmm. Teams are free to have their prerogative, and there's a lot that goes into changing personnel on a team. It's not so much that the front office worries about, well, they're human beings, but it's a big pain in the butt to make a trade sometimes. There's a lot of paperwork involved. There's a lot of, you got to make sure that you're doing the right thing. And they're not necessarily sure that Winder is better than what they already have. But I happen to think that the Twins have been in a really good position as far as these guys on the margins. And it's good that Winder is someone that's available to them. And he's going to have 1 or 2 seasons, I predict, where maybe in low leverage situations, he's up for 50 or 60 games and he doesn't hurt him. And those guys are valuable too.
I think let's move on to Simeon Woods Richardson before we take our last break. We'll again run long because that's what we do. But, 28 starts, if you would have envisioned 28 starts from him this year before the season, I mean, he had thrown 9 2/3 big league innings and had made 1 start before the season. And again, I know either he wore down or the league kind of maybe figured him out a little bit, but you saw a velocity spike. You saw a home run decrease. I mean, again, it's not that many innings, but a lot of things came into focus for SWR. The strikeout to walk rate looked like a big league starter, maybe not an ace, but again, at 23, the performance that he put together, almost a 2-win season, I'm not afraid to say that a step forward for him could get him into like rookie year Joe Ryan territory. And I think we might be sleeping on that a little bit.
The kind of player I think Simeon Woods Richardson is that you absolutely have to have, and a lot of teams don't. I think there's a lot of teams out there who sort of go for somebody with the higher ceiling. I think he's got a very high floor. I think, and he's obviously working on things that are able to maybe in the future get him into games a little bit longer. He maybe was overexposed a little bit in the second half. His numbers weren't as good as they were in the first half. But I see a guy that's working. a guy that offers different looks, that has some things, in his either pitch movement or location or pitch mix that are encouraging for the future. I don't know like how high the ceiling is if we're talking about someone who can attain, like a Bailey Ober someday kind of ascension in a rotation. But I think there's a lot of value in a guy like Simeon Woods Richardson making 30 starts a year. And as long as the way Rocco used him, I wouldn't call it patient, because a lot of times the fourth, fifth inning, he was out of there. And that's just kind of the nature of the game. But he got you that far.
A couple years ago.
Yeah, right. So I'm encouraged by his development. And I don't know that there's like, Joe Ryan as we see him now. Is that going to be the future? I kind of doubt it. But I also think there's value in where he is and where he can still go.
I see a pitcher, though, not a thrower. I see a guy who's in tune with the game around him. And I don't know that I would – it's not that I wouldn't say that about other guys. Like Pablo obviously is of that idea. And maybe the Twins just target those kinds of guys. But I don't see a young kid just throwing the ball through the wall. I see a young guy who's keenly aware that, when he needs to go slider off the plate, he does that. He's processing the game within the game in a way that a lot of pitchers his age don't. And I'm impressed. Again, I know he slumped down the stretch and people were kind of upset about that, but it's like, what did you expect? This was still a 90th percentile outcome for a guy at his experience level, with his age, with his stuff. He was phenomenal.
Way beyond the innings that he had ever thrown before. And he has the look of a guy that will get better in certain areas with experience. Mm-hmm. And that will give him confidence, and he'll get more experience, and he'll be able to go deeper in games next year. I think that's what we'll see out of him.
And to that end, I think Zebby is on a similar track, is just a little further behind. He's not going to have like the season breaks can make those distinctions a little weird, because guys will make those adjustments or improvements in season too. You'll see it in splits. You'll see it in pitch usage or like pitch values, movement, all that. But I think Zebby is a step, maybe 3/4 step, half step behind him, to where maybe that kind of leap for Zebby next year, where he could be a good number 5 starter, is right within his grasp. Let's take our last break. When we come back, we'll talk position players. Finally, it's been a hot minute since we've talked. Well, not a hot minute. We just haven't talked about it yet. But we're going to talk about the catchers, or at least the first two, when we come back around the bend here. Robinhood wants you to know that with Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privilege of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Involves risk. Rates may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. You ever have a moment where you read a comma and you almost say the word comma out loud? Because that's just what happened to me, Dave.
That sounds like something I go through every day, where your brain gets too literal.
Like someone put something on the teleprompter and you're like, who put that on the teleprompter again? Like on Anchorman.
Yes.
Sometimes I get a little too locked
in. He will read whatever you put up there.
Yeah. A little too locked in on Locked On. But we are going to round out this episode and this work week with catchers. And Jair Camargo is a catcher. He's like a CINO, a catcher in name only. Whoa! Props.
I brought props. Major props.
Yeah, this is like watching an episode of Whose Line Is It Anyway, which is probably a pretty good probably a pretty good indication of how this show goes on a episode by episode basis. I feel
I get your reference there.
I feel like I would be like
Captain America.
I'd probably be like Ryan Stiles, which is funny because we used to have a guy named Ryland Stiles who did Locked On Royals. So Ryan Stiles put Alan there. Yes.
He got out just when they were getting good, apparently.
Right. And I don't know who you would be necessarily. Maybe Colin Mockery.
Maybe.
I feel like it is kind of like a whose line is it anyway going on this show. But catchers, Jair Camargo, catcher in name only. The Twins have relied heavily on their catchers the last 2 years, the same two. And we discussed in a recent episode that if they were to move on from Christian Vasquez, I don't necessarily know that they wouldn't go out in free agency and sign a Yan Gomes, and Alex Jackson, I almost said Alan Jackson, way down yonder on the Chattahoochee.
What about Travis d'Arnaud?
Or Travis Tritt. No,
are you a Travis DR? Yes, on Travis d'Arnaud.
Actually, I don't think that would make sense just because he's a righty. He's a great player, but again, it would just come down to, well, then, what are you accomplishing with what he's probably going to cost? But with that said, certainly a good player. I would think maybe I saw somebody else write it because I edited it. Yasmani Grandal too as an option because he swings left-handed. Or can swing left-handed. I don't remember if he's a switch hitter or not. But yeah. So that's an option too. But I don't get the sense that they would be just super eager to hand over the backup job to Camargo unless their hand was really forced. The year they ended up playing Juan Centeno the entire second half because everything fell apart. It would kind of have to be another situation like that. I think Jason Castro got hurt that year, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it would come down to Camargo to me is just not super high on their radar of we got to get this guy behind the plate right now.
Well, Camargo did not. I don't know what kind of defensive season he had at AAA. I hope it was better than his offensive season because he did not hit very well. And the thing about Vasquez is, overall his offensive numbers were not good. In the second half, they were decent. And he had some stretches where he carried him a couple of games, won a couple of games late for him. Still proved to be a valuable player, certainly in the face of the way up and down offensive season of Ryan Jeffers, along with his seeming defensive aggression. I think Jeffers is fixing Ryan Jeffers, not necessarily his hitting, but his framing and whatever defensive issues, because he had those too. Mm-hmm. I think you can deal with the up and downness of the inconsistency of his offense because that's how most catchers are. Most catchers aren't that reliable offensively for whatever reason. It's just not their thing. But Jeffers has got to be better defense. And until you show me that he can be that, you've got to either got to keep Camargo or you've got to make some wholesale changes there for the depth. I don't know. Camargo is one of those guys where I really don't know what's up. I don't, I didn't see, maybe we should get Theodore Tollefson on here to ask, well, how did he look defensively? Because he sure didn't hit. He didn't seem like a guy that you could bring up to the majors and rely upon. I think that's one of the reasons that they ended up sticking with Vasquez and Jeffers as long as they did, even though they were having issues with both. Camargo never hit a AAA, and at least like he did in 2023. So I don't know, as he maxed himself out, is there an injury there that sort of held back his progress? I think, especially with the way the Twins are going to have to give out contracts this year, we're going to have to lower our expectations, lower our ceilings for Jeffers and the whole catching position in general, because I think this is it. I think it's going to be Camargo again in AAA, and these two guys, Jeffers and Vasquez, in the big leagues.
And I think Jeffers, we'll transition to him before we get out of here. We should start calling my theory where a player is 100th percentile or 0 percentile, and so they finish at the 50th despite never resembling that. Right. Warren theory. Can we dub that the Warren theory?
Okay.
I think
should we have a Warren commission first to make sure that it's All the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed.
That's back into the left, isn't it? Or no, that's the Zapruder film.
That's some way.
And then also
it's backward, all right.
But yeah, I think the Warren theory applies to Ryan Jeffers, where hit 226, 300 on base, 432 slug. That's a 107 weighted runs created plus. 317 WOBA, 305 expected WOBA. That's basically like for offensive production from a catcher, you'll take that.
Sure.
But he went from absolutely mashing, not only in 2023, 137 weighted runs created plus, but basically carried that into the first month, 2 months into this season. And then it was as though he got monstered, on Space Jam. And I'm not trying to disrespect him, but it just felt like he didn't play any more defense. He didn't hit anymore. And, luckily Vasquez perked up a little bit, but it's still in the second half. Like, it was not exciting to see who was catching on any given day.
And it almost got to the point too, after Vasquez had a couple of good games, that you're like, gee, I kind of hope he's in the lineup today and not Jeffers, because Jeffers is really struggling.
Well, and for a minute there, DH too, and like in the early season, sure. At the end of the year, yeah.
Well, actually, in August, he was good in August again, and then September he tanked like everybody else on the team. So he did touch bottom in June. He hit 161, just brutal after the awesome first month and pretty good second month. Not necessarily ideal, but he was still slugging in May. The thing I worry about, I think, as Greg Masterson calls him, I think Borgschlut can get Jeffers right at the plate, or at least maybe get him a little more consistent. I'm confident in that. The catcher defense is sort of like, it's the biggest mystery to me. How they're good, why they slump. Why is pitch framing? Was that the pitcher's fault? Did the Twins pitchers let down Ryan Jeffers somehow? Did they all let him down? Is that possible? Is that even logical to say that? Why his defense was bad and how they can get it better again, I don't have the first darn clue. This is why the Twins pay those guys the big bucks. But that's to me, that's one of the 5 biggest questions of the offseason, speaking of show themes.
I think there is an element of chicken and egg for me with pitch framing. Like, do pitchers set up catchers to better frame? And I had asked Harry Pavlidis, I don't know if I'm saying his last name right, Pavlidis, and he said that was baked into it. And I guess, obviously, much smarter than I am, I would trust him. And also, too, like, Christian Vasquez caught the same catchers, and he was pretty dang good defense.
Right.
So that's where I kind of am like, and again, there's a lot of different wrinkles there. And part of me is like, if you trade Vasquez, what do you get that actually helps you this year? Like, can you get the next coming of Kyle Farmer? Like, Aaron Gleeman wrote today in The Athletic, like, Kevin Newman as a target as like the next Kyle Farmer. So why you shouldn't have to trade for someone like that. I don't know. I just think that as much as I can get behind the idea of trading Vasquez as a theory, and I'm not behind it, a good clubhouse guy, where he is seems to be a team that wins. Like, he's won everywhere he's been. Again, I don't know how much that is an actual real thing, but he does things behind the plate that teams value, and they value greatly. I don't think there's a great path to trading Vasquez and replacing him that makes a lot of sense outside of, if you can get Yasmani Grandal to ward off the regression monster one more year. I don't know, but it's hard for me to see a path to trade Vasquez that's good for the Twins unless they turn that money into something useful.
It would, the trade itself would simply to be giving someone like, the reasons would do it. The reasons to do it would be like giving Camargo a chance. We're not sure if we want to give Camargo a chance. I'm not sure what they have there. So there's that. And it would be like getting something in return for Vasquez. It'd be a lottery ticket. It's like these trades that you see in the NFL, these starting wide receivers for a 6th or 7th round pick the next year. It's just to kind of move on to somebody else, to give somebody else a try, and to try a lottery ticket in the draft. So maybe you have something in terms of future resources.
Some fresh legs or a guy you can actually. So Michael A. Taylor, the trade for him, the first guy to make the big leagues, Steven Cruz for the Royals, made it this last year, and then they just added Evan Sisk to their 40. So both the guys they got, they're at least going to get a look at. I mean, that's for a guy like Michael A. Taylor that the Royals were ready to get rid of.
Right.
That's a pretty good trade like that. It's too early.
Yeah, that's but that also you're thinking I think a lot in terms of I'm not doing cough man. No.
Thanks.
Just had to clear my throat a little bit. I think in terms with the Twins, how are we going to get the Twins to where they are competing down to October 1st for the playoffs next year? I think all things being equal, that should be Valvi's goal. He should make some nice trades to kind of make that happen. But I don't know if that is even a realistic thing based on the limitations that the ownership places on him as far as how much they're going to be able to pay people. But I wouldn't move. I mean, you can't plan on using Vasquez behind the plate for 100 full games. As it would have to be like half games or 80 full games. If you don't know exactly what the deal is with Jeffers, what you can't have next year, this is what you can't have. You can't have Jeffers regressing more on defense. You need to stop the free fall before it gets even worse, because then you are talking about real games and edges that you're losing if the defense gets any worse. They have to stop that. They have to figure out what's wrong and stop the bleeding. That's one of the biggest questions they have in the offseason.
The second catcher to me has to be Vasquez, Grandal, Darno. It would be a fine. Jansen. All those would be great options. It has to be someone you trust to put back there, even if it's Yan Gomes. And I don't know, he could be cooked, but not Martin.
I think he might be cooked.
Yeah, but
he somebody might be cooked. I'd much rather get Carson Kelly. How about Carson Kelly?
That's fine. Yeah, any of those guys who have at least started in the last few years. Jacob Stallings, if you think he can hit 200. You can have your Austin Hedges and eat it too. That's weird phrasing, but you need someone with big league experience. You can't go into the season with Jeffers potentially free falling and Camargo. So it's Vasquez or one of the free agents. And if a Vasquez trade makes sense, I don't know what that looks like. So it'll be curious to see how that ends up.
It does. And I don't really have anything more to say.
Well, I wanted to give you a chance, and then, I'll let you dip here. We have gone well into overtime, but hopefully you enjoyed it. He's Dave Brown. I'm Brandon Warren saying thank you so much.
Maybe you should put me behind the plate. I got the mask.
The milk jug seems to be
disappearing.
Yeah.
Oh, no. What happened?
Well, how about this? I'll make the both of us disappear. This has been Locked On Twins. He's Dave Brown. I'm Brandon Warren. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see ya tomorrow night.
We won't be able to see it if the chroma key doesn't work, though.